This is like going to the therapist. Not
Okay,
costing me any money, is it?
okay, we're back on, and
Okay.
we're now at 1962,
Yep.
where you joined McHale's Navy.
Yes, McHale's Navy was a very successful comedy series, Universal. We were guaranteed 42 weeks out of the year. And I played a guy named Happy Haynes, which is kind of interesting because I really wasn't too happy doing that series. And what happened, we had moved into the house, and I was praying to God that I would get something. And I think the payments were like $135 a month. But at that time, it was enormous. My last $1,000, as I said, was into the house. There I was. And Robert Blake and his wife Sandra, in my living room, we had no furniture. We had two little boys. And I got a telegram from Universal saying, we'd like to see you for a series called McHale's Navy. So I said, wow, this is it. And so I went down there and I talked to everybody. Eddie Montana is a fabulous producer. And Cy Rose, a great writer. All award people, they're from the Sergeant Bilko days. And they told me they wanted me to do it. And so I went home and I talked to my agent, and he said, I don't think you should do it. I said, we're guaranteed 42 weeks out of the year. I mean, whew, what an answer to prayer, you know what I mean? And my wife said, I don't think you should do it, you know, because they wouldn't guarantee any kind of billing, and I had already had, you know, the guest star stuff. And but I said, no, you don't understand. This is for me. Now, this will take the monkey off my back regarding the payments for the house. You know, this is going to take care of everything. And so I decided to do it, and I did it. And I met some great people there. You know, Ernie Borgnine's a great guy, Tim Conway, Joe Flynn, Gary Vincent, who's dead, Billy. I mean, so many of them have passed away now. And, yeah, and by the time somebody's watching this, I won't be here anymore either. But it was a very interesting group. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because they had hired Carl Ballantine to be in it. And Carl Ballantine, when I was a little boy, I used to see in all the theaters in New York, the Paramount, the Capitol, and so forth. He was a character called the Great Ballantine, and he did magic acts that nothing ever worked. It was just a very funny take, and he's from Chicago. And so I wanted to work with him, and that consecutive employment was kind of neat. I thought I could do it. And at that time, my identity was coming through the kind of sizes of the parts I had, and you know, wanting to be somebody else. And McHale's Navy, I had like 2 lines a week, and these young people they just picked up who hadn't had an acting career, but they had certain types. They had much more to do, and I started to feel sorry for myself. I started to drink, and I started to be very, very unhappy. And one night, I remember I was drinking, and I just felt like I couldn't go home to face my wife. I just felt that, you know, as an actor, I was just going down the tubes, and I said, "Oh, forget it." And there's a road up in the West Coast up here, and called Mulholland Drive. The movie was called Mulholland Drive, and I said, "It's not worth it. Nothing is worth anything anymore." And I just selfishly started to go off the road to go down, and something made me just put my foot on the brake, and I stopped it. And so Robert Blake didn't live far from there, so I went over to his house. He said, "What's up? It's late." I said, "I know." I said, "I'm going through the terrible inner turmoil." I said, I just tried to go off the road. He said, "There's a shrink I know. You better go see." And I told my wife, and it took a while, but I finally was able to go there. And he said, you got to get out of that show. He said, where you are, where your identity is, you've got to get out of that show. I said, I don't know how I do that. I said, but they had sent me pictures to sign for the 3rd year, to sign. I couldn't sign them. I just couldn't sign them. So then they called, they said, we need the pictures. I said, do you think I can come down to see Eddie Montana, our producer? He said, yeah. So I made an appointment. I went down to see him. I said, Eddie, I said, you can save me and my family. I said, I have been in a very bad place. He said, I had no idea. I said, well, no. going to show it to you. You don't pay me to have me show you what's going on, you know. And I said, but you can save us by letting me out. He said, whatever, sure. He said, blessings on you. So I got out of that series, and then the next thing I started doing my favorite Martians, just like that. And then just like that, Robert Wise called for me to do the Sand Pebbles, and I went to China with my old friend Steve McQueen. So my career started again, which I had an identity, and I started to feel good about myself, and that was it. So McHale's Navy, which was a fabulous wacko comedy, on the other hand, was a change of life for me, you know. And Eddie Montaigne, I never could thank him enough for what he allowed.
Can you talk a little bit about your character that you played, Happy Haynes?
It wasn't much of a character, that's what I mean. I mean, the guy had 2 lines a week. The guy, I tried to do a biography, but who would care about it, you know? They just throw him these 2 negative lines, you know, and they did have one show that he had something to do in, but the show was basically not about any of the peripheral characters. They were about, you know, McHale and the captain, Joe Flynn, who was incredible, and Tim Conway, Ensign, who was very funny, and Bob Hastings, the assistants. And we would just, you know, sometimes they'd have me stand there. We'd shoot in the back lot, because I would cover something they didn't want anybody to see in the back lot. And I would stand there covering this thing back there, because I was heavy, and because I started drinking. And, the character Happy Haynes was I said they should have called him Unhappy Haynes. You know, he should have been one of the dwarfs. You know, he never said much, you know, but he was around there laughing, responding as the group. You know, it was one of those things. And it was very hard after guest starring on The Untouchables, after having those meaty, interesting characters to play, to do this. And I thought I could do it. Maybe other people could. I thought I could do it because of the consecutive employment. And then we had another kid in between. We had Julie in between. We kept having children. And but I tell you, the moment he said, "You can go," I felt like a bird that was let out of a cage. I just felt fabulous. I said, "Where am I going to land? Where am I going to land?" And John Ehrman, my old friend, had called, and a lot of people never saw McHale's Navy. They thought I was in New York doing a play, because when I surfaced, they said, "Where have you been?" Because they didn't even know, you know. And so that's the story.
So the experience didn't put you off acting at all?
Oh, not at all. It made me really want to do more, you know.
Did it change what kind of things you wanted to do?
No. I always felt blessed just to have any kind of a part. You know, just to be able to make a living doing what you want to do, you're really chosen, especially in this business with the competition. It's so severe, you know, and no, it didn't put me off at all. It just made me want to do better stuff.
So what kind of things did you do?
Well, I played, on that one, I played, what was his name? A very funny, Wanamaker, I think Alvin Wanamaker or something, his name was, with Ray and Bill Bixby, these wonderful, talented people. I did a few of those. I played Barbara Britton's nephew, I think, who was a salesman, a fast talk with a hairpiece on, Glenn Plaid suit.
Pamela Britton?
Pamela Britton, yeah. I didn't say that. Did I call her something else? I meant it was Pamela. She was great. I used to see her on Broadway. And, you know, it was a wonderful set to work on. And so I loved that, and that was all great. And then when he was a very happy, up character, you know, energetic kind of guy, tell you anything, you know. You liked him, one of those guys. And then when Robert Wise called, I had done a few things for him in my past on film. He said, "How tall are you?" I said, "How tall do you want me to be?" And he said, "Well, Steve is 5'11". You can't be." I said, "I'm 5'10 and a half, and it's the truth. God help me." He says, "Okay, come on over. I want to see you." And I went to see him. I had tested for him in Run Silent, Run Deep one of the first things I ever did out here. And then he said, "But I already have a Baldy." I'll never forget. He said, "But I want to see you on film." And that was Don Rickles. And then I did I Want to Live with Robert Wise. And I almost got her husband. But Wagner, the other producer, felt I was too young for her. I had the hairpiece then. I was too young for Susan Hayward. So they gave me the lieutenant, the last billed part. And he says, "I owe you one, Robert." And the Sand Pebbles was, I think, in his mind, I've always said if I could pick a dad, I'd pick Robert Wise. I just love that man. And the Sand Pebbles, the way he controlled hundreds and thousands of people in his very quiet demeanor, the strength he has, the creativity he had. He was the editor for Citizen Kane, early on when he was young. I just love that man. Anyway, how did I get there? What was I talking about? Oh, the Sand Pebbles, yeah. So I was on that for, I think it was 8 months. I came back from that, and that was tough because it was the first Christmas I was away. Then we had the little one, the little tiny ones. There were the 4 kids I was away. When I came back, I got a call to do a series called The Rat Patrol in Spain. I don't know if this is 84, 85, 60, 64, 65, something like that. Anyway, it was the first season of The Rat Patrol, and they shot it in Spain, and they sent me the script. I said, I can't believe this. I said, in the first 2 pages, I'm going to shoot this thing in 5 days. I have more lines than I did for the 8 months on the Sand Pebbles, It's interesting the way it works. And I got a chance in this one to really expire, to really die from the audience. That was my challenge. This character really, and they kept the camera right on him, and you saw him, all the breath, everything come out. I was very pleased about that one scene in The Rat Patrol.
How did you prepare for that?
I just think about my father, and I think about some of the things, my uncle, I think about some of the people I saw, leave in my life, and that's it.
That was in 1966.
Was it 66? Thanks.
What other kind of roles did you do around that time?
66, gee whiz. Well, I was in Theater West, so I was doing theater. I was writing and directing plays there with Carol O'Connor and, a great group of people. And that was just a very creative period there. I don't know, the kind of television. What was I doing there in 66?
Oh, you did some Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, yeah, I did some Hogan's. That was just before I went to do the Sand Pebbles. And then when I came back, because it had a long run, there was one Hogan's Heroes that was interesting called Hello, Zolly. He was Gestapo and a little small guy with a Himmler mustache with glasses, black, and he had these 2 big German soldiers over him. I played him small. It was fun, And then later on, after the Sand Pebbles, I started to put on weight. I went back some more. I did a few of those, playing generals and things like that. That was a fun show to do. Really a fun show to do.
I was working with Bob Crane.
He was okay, but I loved Werner and I loved John and Larry Hovis and Dickie, and Ivan, or that whole group. I knew them all 100 years, and yeah. Anyway, Bob was great. He was great to be with, but the other guys are the ones I really hung with. Fun series.
Any other memories from around that time?
I remember my wife and I were out doing the 7-Year Itch, and Bob Crane was playing another theater in Florida. We were in Florida, and he came to see our show. And he says, "You guys want to come over? I got some great movies to look at." And we said, "No, I don't think we have time for that, And that, we didn't know what he was into at that time, because the big movie has been made about his life and all that. But he was very, very, very gracious, and he was a different kind of a guy, I wouldn't spend a lot of time with him, but he had a very appealing quality.
You also appeared on Ben Casey.
Yes, I did a Ben Casey. Oh, that was interesting. I went to the interview with my hair in the box in the picture, and I played opposite Janet Blair. Yes, we had kissing scenes and things like that, and it was a thrill of mine because, again, Janet Blair I had seen do musicals all over the place, Nellie Furbush and everything, and Follies, and it was a thrill for me to play opposite her. I think I played a stage manager, and she was a performer, and we were in love, and I got those parts too, and that was nice. And I didn't have to wear my hair for it. The director I loved him. He was great. He's passed away.
Mark Daniels?
Mark Daniels, right. And he said, no, I don't want you to wear the hair. I want you to be like this. So that was neat. Yeah. Mark Daniels was terrific. Yeah. I think he had something to do with Stage Door Candy or something way back. He was terrific. He was an actor's director. Paul Henry was an actor's director. Paul Henry directed me in a few things. And he's a guy I love too. That's the first time. Cloris Leachman, when I was young, I saw Cloris Leachman when I was in college. She was doing As You Like It with Catherine Cornell on the stage. She knocked me out. And then years later, there was a play called King of Queens, and Cloris was starring with Jackie Cooper and Donald Cook in New York. She knocked me out. So I'm doing The Connection in 1960, so this is after The Connection. And I get a call from Paul Henry. He has directed me something at Screen Gems already. Now this is coming, The Road West or something like that. And he says, I want you to play the man that owns this place. And this woman works for you, this singing woman, and this young Armenian comes in, is very attractive, and he absconds with her. I said, well, who's playing him? He says, Cloris Leachman. I said, wow. So I got a chance to play with Cloris for the first time in my life. And that was a fabulous experience. And then eventually we met again on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Another show you were on was Hawaii Five-0.
Hawaii Five-0, to this day, people just tell me about it, certain people. I played a guy named Big Chicken. I was doing a play called, it was a Thomas Wolfe play, You Can't Go Home Again. It was that play. And I got a call to go see about this new series, Hawaii Five-0, with Jack Lord. Well, my first little B movie was with Jack Lord and Betsy Palmer. So I knew him a little bit. And so I go into the office. It was at Four Star. And I read the description of this character, Big Chicken. He's 6'3". He has a goatee. He is very, very thin. And here I'm sitting there with a bald head, a little stocky kind of guy. I said, they made a mistake. And the casting person, I heard, just put a hold on the actor, a Canadian actor, John Calico or something, from Canada, who was playing Winston Churchill in New York City. Smash. And she said, the Big Chicken. I said, wow, because he's going, what am I here reading for? But I went in and I met this producer, and I'll never forget it. I played this character. He read with me. There was no casting person there. He just read with me. He looks at me. I never thought you could act. I said, what? He said, I really never thought you could act. I said, well, you know, it depends on the part. Maybe I had non-acting parts that you saw, or maybe you never saw me do anything that was decent. He said, I want you to play this. I said, what about the big talk? He said, that was the author, John D.F. Black. He described himself. That's what he looks like. I said, oh. So I did Hawaii Five-0, Big Chicken. It was the second one they ever made. Ricardo Montalban. Ricky was the first guest. Here, I fly over to Hawaii. I'm so excited. I fly, and I love this character. It was called, and they painted daisies on his coffin. And this guy would get kids hooked on drugs, so they would steal for him, and he would get money that way. Terrible person, and delicious to play. And I said, I know what I'm going to do, because in those days, peace symbols were around. I'm going to wear a peace symbol, because after he does something terrible, he's going to say, peace, brother, peace, and just hold it up like that. And the review in the TV Times, when it finally came out, in the TV Guide, was fabulous. So they said, we want to write another one for you at the end of the season. Okay, so they apprehended me at the end of the first episode. Then they wrote another one called The Box. And The Box is when I was in prison. And this we shot in the real prison in Hawaii, and the people in that prison, it's all barbed wire. So you can see life going on. It's not blocks that blocks out. You can see life, and it eats you up. And Jerry O'Loughlin, one of my favorite actors in the whole world, I got a chance to play with then in that show, and Bob Doyle was in that show, and of course Jack. And that character's name was Big Chicken. I'll never forget one day, years after, I'm out eating with all the kids and my mom in some restaurant. And I see this couple looking over and say, I think we were doing the Mary Tyler Moore Show then. And they go, Mr. MacLeod. I said, yes. We have to tell you, she says, we loved you as Big Chicken. My mother said, that wasn't him. That wasn't him. She just didn't want them to see me playing parts like that. And anyway, that was that. And that was the Hawaii Five-0. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
And soon after that, you joined the Mary Tyler Moore Show,
Yep.
1970.
1970. That was right after I did Kelly's Heroes in Yugoslavia with a whole group of people, Clint Eastwood, et cetera. And then the Mary Tyler, then I came home from that and I was rehearsing Carousel. I was doing Jigger in Carousel. And my agent said, they're interested in seeing you for the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I said, oh, I love her, you know. Gee, we worked together, almost worked together a second time on Dick's show. And she and Grant used to come to see my shows. Whenever I did plays, they would always be in the audience. They sent me 2 scripts, the pilot and Rhoda's Mother. And they wanted to see me for Lou Grant. And what a great part. But I wouldn't believe myself being her boss. I was on a diet, I was losing weight, I was doing Carousel. I was thinking young and moving young. I wouldn't buy myself being Mary's boss. But I like this part. Not the biggest part, but I like this guy, Murray Slaughter. So I go in for the day, for the interview, and there's Ethel Wynant, fabulous human being, and Alan Burns and Jim Brooks.
Now, who are these people?
Oh, Alan Burns is the co-creator, and Jim Brooks is the co-creator of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Previous to this, they did the Room 222 and My Mother the Car. And Grant Tinker, one of the greatest guys you ever want to meet, brought them together to do the pilot for the Mary Tyler Moore Show and create the show. And they were the ones we met. And Alan knew some people on Kelly's Heroes, so we rapped about that. What he'd been doing, and I said, I just got back, I'm rehearsing the show, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And so we started reading Lou Grant's, and I was getting laughs. I felt great, you know, Ethel and I. But I said, I wonder if I should really, this is a good thing for actors to know too, to follow your heart. So I said, well, I'll see you guys, I gotta go rehearsal. So I put my hand on the door. I said, can I tell you the truth? I said, I really like this character, Murray. I said, you do? I said, yeah. I said, I really have I don't know, there's something about, I think I can do something with him. I didn't say that they wouldn't believe me. I didn't go into that. And so he said, well, why don't you read a few lines, Jim? I said, okay. So I said, reading some of the lines from there, and they were laughing. And so I said, well, got to get the rehearsal. So I go out, and then I see Ed Asner outside, pacing back and forth, Ed's famous pace. So I go to rehearsal, and that afternoon, about 4:15, my agent came over. He called me out, and he said, they want you to do the Mary Tyler Moore pilot. I said, what part? He said, I don't know. I think it's a guy named Murray. I said, good. I got what I wanted. Wow. And then they had everybody except Ted Baxter. And then I hadn't seen Ted in maybe 6 months or something, because we were all friends since 1957. And it was announced that Ted Knight was playing Ted Baxter. I said, that's all they wrote. I said, this is going to be terrific. And so that was the beginning of it, and that's how I got it. And then, it's one of the classic television shows of all time.
Talk a bit about shooting the pilot.
Well, the pilot, I didn't have too much to do in the pilot. We had WJM, and we had Mary's, apartment, and she and Rhoda opened up and everything, and she was coming there. She was coming off a romance. Originally, it was going to be a divorce, but CBS said, no, divorces don't work. We don't. So I think it was an engagement she was breaking up with. And so here she is in Minneapolis, in that wonderful apartment. And the window, there is Rhoda at the window, cleaning the window. And that was the beginning of that incredible relationship. We just did what we had to do in the office, and we knew it was funny stuff, and that Spunk scene, you know, and that's one of the classic scenes of all time. You've got Spunk, I hate Spunk, that all. And then everybody, the CBS brass came to see it, and I guess they had made some reservations about it, and so we did it again in about 2 or 3 days, and I think they liked it. But then we continued on with the next, and I remember we used to work around a big table, and Mary got a phone call, and she goes to the phone call, and she's talking. It was Bob Wood, and she says, "Gang, we can send out our laundry." They picked us up for the year. But I remember another thing, in reading Rhoda's Mother, as soon as I picked it up and read it, all I thought was Nancy Walker. So in that first interview with them, I said, who's playing this, who's playing that? You want to know everything. And they mentioned Valerie, they mentioned Cloris, thinking about all these people. And I said, what about the mother? Oh, Maureen Stapleton. Boy, this Nancy Walker. Well, they weren't too familiar. I said, Nancy Walker. And I started giving her all the credits and everything else. So we finally got around to shooting that one. Who was there but Nancy Walker? The rest is history. She's just, you know, that was that, you know. It's funny how those things happen, you know. If I didn't follow my heart, if I didn't follow my instinct of wanting to play Murray Slaughter and of saying, hey, you guys, you know, I really liked, then I wouldn't have been in the Mary Tyler Moore. I wouldn't be talking to you now. See how these things happen. And so I always tell actors, you know, if you have that instinct about it, just go with it, you know, go with it.
Do you know who else was considered for the role of Murray?
Yeah, a wonderful actor. No. I can see him. He's a wonderful actor. He's got a mustache. He had a baldish head. I worked with him, and I want to say Ben something. He did another series after that. Very, very good. A different type of kind of guy, but a wonderful actor. And that's all I know. You know, there's a book called Love Is All Around. That's a great book about the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I found out more about what was going on by reading the book than I did really living it. And but I see his face. I just can't think of his name, but I know he was really up there.
Describe the character of Murray Slaughter.
Oh, Murray Slaughter was the Mr. Brown Bagger. Murray Slaughter was almost every man. Murray Slaughter was the kind of guy that was married, he had a couple of kids. Helen Hunt was one of them, you know, one of my daughters. She went out to great stuff. Who was just trying to make ends meet, who wanted to be a Pulitzer Prize writer, you know, and here he is writing the news for Butterlips, you know. His lunch was in a brown bag, you know, had a second-hand car, never had too much, and enjoyed Sue Ann. He enjoyed, I think, his cynical wit regarding Ted Baxter and Sue Ann really came out of love. He was very simplistic in those kinds of ways, and had a wonderful wife that he was very true to. He thought at one time he could have an affair, you know, with this woman that shows up, and he goes over and they play the piano and sing "Strangers in the Night" together, and then they come close to kissing in the audience. I'll never forget, it was like our third or fourth year that show happened, and they went, no, because Murray was going to kiss Barbara Barry, fabulous actress. So and one of the most profound shows for him, I think, was the one, besides Chuckles, which was the greatest, was when he was in love with Mary.
Actually, let's stop there and change the tape.